Okay, you're live. Welcome everybody to Laying the Points with Farley Bets, and not just Farley Bets. With me and Steve, every Wednesday, 7 o'clock, we go live here on Twitter. Live broadcast of our ATS breakdown of the NFL week by week. This week, obviously, week 6, and we have a lot to cover as always. But Steve, feeling a little better that we have 2 games off the slate. At least we get a little bit of wiggle room there to do a tiny bit less research this week. But I have to address a few things here at first, as always, and I got some pretty cool things to talk about. But let me just first start out with at theoddsbreakers.com. Follow them on Twitter. Follow all the writers at the Oddsbreakers. Always a lot of stuff going on there. I mean, you name it: horse racing, golf, UFC, boxing, every sport. I mean, pretty much every sport that you can imagine, every popular sport getting bet on. Now the NHL is here. Got the baseball playoffs. We got the NBA around the corner. Just a lot of shit going on, and it's tough to keep up with it all. So rely on other people and their expertise, because it's impossible to be an expert on every single sport right now. What else do I want to talk about? I want to talk about Sports Wager U. This scrolling thing you see if you're watching on video. Check out out. Easy for me to say, at Sports Wager U on Twitter. Sports Wager University, an up and coming business. We're trying to help people learn to become sharp bettors out there that I'm a part of. Really excited about that. And then also follow at BetUSTV. I got an opportunity to do some shows on the NBA this season. Very excited about that. I actually did our first show today. So check me out on there and check out that show and all the sports they do for that. And with that, let's get to some of the record keeping here, Steve, for us in football. I'm going to cover mine first, and then I'm going to give Steve a little segue that needs to happen here, and you'll see what I'm saying. But on my behalf, decent week for me last week in week 5. I went 6-7 overall, with 2-1 on teasers. Big win on Monday night thanks to the Ravens. I'm glad that hit. Overall, +1 unit, so not a lot of movement for me. It was a tougher week for me, 38-33 overall in the season, but still +17 units, which is obviously the number to always think about here, right? If you're positive units, if you're putting the right amount of units on the right bets, then you're going to be way in the black. And that's something that Steve and I have done a lot this year. And another thing to discuss is we went, what was it, 3-1-1 last week in Circa, one tie. Those damn Bengals, man, they should have won that game, but that's fine. That pushed, so we are 12-2-1 in Circa picks the last 3 weeks, Steve and I. Remember to check out my post every Sunday on Twitter. I'll put it up at the Odds Breakers, where Steve and I give out our official Circa picks. I give out premium picks too, and so does Steve, but those Circa picks are the picks that we think about more than anything. I mean, we really go over those in our heads a lot. I mean, you should see our text threads with those conversations. So check those out. We're winning a lot, and with that, I got to segue to Steve, because Steve, you got to give us some tricks of the trade here. I told you guys before, I sound like a broken fucking record, but there's a reason why I brought Steve onto the show. But Steve, you're exceeding expectations. +30 units through 5 weeks. What the hell is your secret so far, Steve?
Honestly, yeah, I guess I caught lightning in a bottle here in the last 3 weeks. I haven't really I was looking at week 2 and we went 8-7 that week. And since then I've been 10-2 in week 3, 10-6 in week 4, and then 10-5-1 here last week in week 5. So a lot of it for me is really just focusing on seeing where the money is going, looking at these lines, seeing how they're moving, and pretty much handicapping my own lines in the beginning. And then that's it. And then going off of what I think the narrative is for each team and what I think is going to happen, and kind of just stick with your first instinct and make adjustments going from there.
Yeah, sticking to your power ratings, sticking to what you know, and then adjusting the lines from there based on those favorites. I mean, that's really tough to do throughout the NFL season, to always trust your numbers, but like and always trust your own insight. But man, that is working out for you, Steve, and you deserve kudos. How many picks overall? Like, what's the record overall?
49-25 right now.
Okay, so that's 74 picks
Yep.
Sample size. I mean, I won't keep on embarrassing you, Steve, but 74 picks over 5 weeks in the NFL, that is a good sample size. That's not a joke. You know, people go week to week and they go, oh, I was 10-1 this week. Good for you. Hey, ooh. But week to week, Steve is winning. Like, I'm, sending in the wins and losses that I have, Steve, and I'm like, wait until Steve sees this. I had a good week. And then Steve's, and then you're like 1 or 2 wins ahead every goddamn week. But That's fine. That's fine. I love the competition here. You're going to be tough to compete with this year. But Steve, that's amazing, and sincerely, you deserve credit. Proud to have
Appreciate
you on my show, man.
Thank
And
you.
we're going to keep on chugging along here. So, with that, maybe we can keep this one with under 60 minutes. I don't know. There's always a lot to talk about. But first game is the game of, well, no, it's not the game of the week, but it's the game that Steve has his eyes on because it's tomorrow night and it is at Philadelphia, Tampa Bay at Philly. Now, in some books, this has moved to 7.5 with a lot of juice on Philly. Total is at what, 52.5. Steve, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, this is a very interesting one because I've been looking at Twitter all day, seeing what a lot of people are saying, seeing stats about Brady in primetime games, how he's not covering against the spread in these spots, and it's short week. It does really make for an interesting play here. I I really am kind of torn on this one because I want to say like, oh, okay, the Eagles, you know, they found a way to win last week. It wasn't pretty by any means. If you watch that game, they went 3 quarters, looked completely terrible on offense, but their defense kept them in the game. And I'll get into Sam Darnold later when we talk about the Panthers. But he did exactly what I thought he would do, not be able to win a game in a clutch situation when they had complete control. But the key is for the Eagles, and it's no joke, and we saw in the fourth quarter, is they need to find ways to get Jalen Hurts into open space. He's not going to be a pure pocket passer. He has to use his legs, and we saw that last week. When he's mobile, he's dangerous, and that is the way the Eagles are going to survive this year. That's the only way I think they're going to be able to beat teams like Tampa Bay, going toe to toe with them when the likes of Brady. But for me personally, I just don't think they can keep pace with Brady with all of his weapons. He does have the hand injury, the thumb injury, but it's looking to be a complete non-factor. Gronk is still going to be out. The Eagles they're pretty banged up. I mean, Lane Johnson's going to be out again. Dallas Goedert is now out this week. So that's one more offensive weapon of theirs that they're not going to have. And their offensive line against definitely a hungry Tampa Bay defense that I would say is probably underperformed for what we were expecting so far this year. So I look for them to probably get after Hurts. And also, I still play the narrative in my head that Brady still just absolutely wants to dunk on Philly since of that Super Bowl as well. But we look at some things like Eagles are 6-2 against the spread in the last 8 weeks. Overall, obviously, they actually that's not right at all. No, that's on Thursday night football games. They're 6-0 in their last game straight up on Thursday night football games, is what I meant to say. But one thing I don't like about this game, we're getting our 7 points, sometimes 7.5. There's just a lot of juice on it to be able to bet it. But there was a prop bet I saw that I really stood out to me that Jalen Hurts was minus 140 with passing 1.5 touchdowns. And if Vegas is saying that they're expecting him to pass 2 touchdowns or more, that means Eagles are putting up points. And if the Eagles are putting up points, you can certainly bet Tampa Bay's putting up points. So I'm really taking this one and looking at the over 52.5 from my own perspective on this one.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to incorporate more in our conversations too, Steve. Is I know even on my end, I need to look more at props, and some of those like supplemental bets that you can make during games. So that's a sharp look. Yeah, I mean Tampa Bay only allowing 45.8 rushing yards per game. I mean that is ridiculous through 5 weeks. They're doing historic things through their run defense, pass defense, touch and go, and hard to know if that's a stat we can trust because a lot of teams playing from behind, obviously against the Bucks, high scoring games. So I don't know, but this line, like you, Steve, it scares me. I mean, is Vegas luring us to take Philly here with that hook? They're giving us juice. I mean, to the public, minus 130, minus 135 could read as something enticing, right? Like this is the side to take. I mean, if you're not a learned sports bettor anyway. And like my buddy Kyle Hunter says, I mean, if you're going to make a lot of bets at minus 135, minus 140, you better win, right? Because the books are taking a lot of vig from you. So I think I still lean the Eagles because the spot at home, Eagles 7-0 last TNF games, ATS. They're an ATS cover machine at home. It's going to be a hostile environment, Lord knows, in Philly. No love loss, right, for Philly fans and Tom Brady. Not that they're arch enemies, but they did see him in that Super Bowl. But Jalen Hurts is just—I don't think he's just not a very good quarterback. He's inconsistent. He is dangerous on the run, like you said, Steve. Right now, I already gave -7 to my premium customers to take the Bucks. I think looking at 7.5, I think you get 6.5 on the Bucks, 7.5 on the Eagles could be a good middle. A lot of games in on that 7. For now, I'm going to retreat and not make a big play on this, but very very interesting game, and like you said, Steve, a lot of money going on the Bucks, so that scares me away a little bit from the Eagles. Okay, actually, it scares me away from the Bucks, I should say. Okay, so Dolphins at the Jags. Jags plus 3.5 at home. Totals at 47. I'm just going to say right from the onset here, I'm taking the bait with this one. Even if Vegas is giving us the hook with the Jags at plus 3.5, I'm going to take it. Brissett is just like a walking zombie right now. Like he's hurt, he's playing hurt. It's obvious that he's playing hurt. He's slow out there. I mean, the Jaguars had more yards than the Titans last week by a pretty good margin, almost by 100 yards actually. Eventually, now the Jags, as usual, shot themselves in the foot a lot, but eventually the Jags are going to win a game. I really do believe that. I don't have too much faith in Urban Meyer, but I do think that Trevor Lawrence is making strides. I think you could easily say that Trevor Lawrence is the better quarterback in this game already, right? Even in his rookie year with some of the limitations that Jacoby Brissett has. And Jags, now this is one of those London games too, so for the Jags, that's not that big of a deal, right? Jags are used to going over there in London. They have a huge fan base over there. I mean, you go to any other game in London, and there's like a ton of jerseys or a ton of people who have Jaguars jerseys on because they're the team that has been there the most. So I'm going to be on the Jags all day. We get the hook here. It's a London game. Those have a lot of volatility anyway. And the Dolphins, I mean, I'm selling the Dolphins right now, Steve. They just don't look good in any regard. They can't keep up with teams on offense, and their defense is now letting them down too. So I can look no other way than the Jags.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. I do like the Jags as well. But, some news that did come out today is Tua is practicing this week. I don't know if you did see that, and that I think he might actually be expected to play. But for me, that still doesn't change my angle as well, though, either with this, because I'm just looking at him coming in cold off of injury. And again, you're coming in cold off of injury, and now you're expected to travel into London, not being warm from NFL play. I just don't think it fits very well and will bode well for him. And if you really think about it, like you talked about, was the Jaguars playing in London. So in the last 7 years, Jaguars overall have been atrocious. They have a record of 31-81 with one outlier year where they had 10 wins and actually almost made it to the Super Bowl, believe it or not. But in those 7 years, they're 3-4 playing in London. So that's a really bad team, but they're almost 500 playing in London. So from that perspective, they're comfortable playing there. They know how to get it done. They have veterans on that team that are used to this trip, that know what to do. So I do think that this is a good spot for them to actually get a win. So I'm going to be looking at that 3.5 with the hook, even possible money line plays. And because Tua might be playing here and he's going to be coming in cold, maybe, maybe still a little injured as well, that these are two bad teams. I'm going to look at the under as well. Miami has been in a lot of overs lately, but Jacksonville has also been in a lot of unders. The 4 out of their last 5 games have been under. And with Tua coming back possibly and being hurt and not being able to really move the ball, I'm looking at an under as well at 47.
All right, Texans at the Colts. Colts 10-point favorites. Ooh, 10-point favorites at home. Now they did play well against the Ravens, until they didn't at the very end. But Texans at Colts. Colts 10-point favorites. Total is 43. This one's to you, Steve.
So, man, I really wish it was still at 9.5 because that's where I would really like this game. But what a major meltdown by the Colts defense that we saw on Monday night. I mean, Carson Wentz pretty much had about as flawless of a game as you could ask from him, except for that one drive where he was typical Wentz, held onto the ball too long and fumbled it, like we've always been talking about this whole year. And you're not shocked to see it, but a crucial part in the game where they could have put more points on the board, and that ultimately could have been a deciding factor in that game. But I regress from that. You're up 16 points in the fourth quarter. You're still expecting to be able to win that game in your defense whole when you've completely shut down Lamar Jackson. But we were surprised with seeing Lamar actually get it done in the air. So that was very surprising to see. But this defense, they have to show up this week. They're playing an inferior opponent in Houston Texans. I understand it's a big spread, but again, Carson Wentz is the spread master. Houston is 2-6 against the spread in their last 8 games they played in October. Likewise, Colts are 7-3 in the last 10 games they played in October. So this team plays well in October. Carson Wentz covers the spreads, and they have to be absolutely hungry and straight off pissed off of how they performed on Monday night, and they have to come out and just absolutely dunk on Houston.
Yeah, this is really interesting, and it's kind of a good lesson in sports betting because, the money, right, the spot, how teams have performed so far. And in any given game, you're evaluating a bunch of different things, and you really have to what's the strongest angle? Why am I betting this game, and why am I betting this game this way instead of this way? And so I'm going to take the other side here, Steve, but I like all your points. I just the public is pretty even on this one. And Davis Mills, I mean, I don't know if we can count on this every week, but he actually played pretty well last week against the Patriots, who are notorious for, grilling rookie quarterbacks and putting them through the gauntlet. He looked good. I mean, the Texans should have won that game, but I mean, I'm glad the Patriots won me a few bets. But Carson Wentz did play really well last week too. You called that one, Steve. We were both on the underdog there. But I don't know if I can expect that week to week. Like we said in the past, Steve, this Texans defense is feisty. The Texans defense can keep them in games. It's still a division game, and now we have injuries to Blankenship, right? The Colts field goal kicker. He's not something going on with his hip. He was missing field goals. Xavier Rhodes and Darius Leonard are a little banged up. I mean, I don't know how much it's going to affect them in this game. I don't think it's anything that's going to hold them out. But 10 points it's a lot in a pro football game, and we keep on seeing Houston hanging in these games. If Carson Wentz doesn't play to that level every week, I think there are a lot of teams are going to cover against the Colts, and I just don't want. I think it could be an overreaction on the Colts a little bit. They played really well against Baltimore. Now they're going back home, but I can't take 10 points on the Colts. So right now I lean on the Texans. Let's go Packers and Bears. Packers 4-point favorites on the road. Total is 44.5. This is one of my least favorite games on the board. I don't see a lot of great angles here in this one. I kind of want to go with the over. I mean, the Bears starting to produce a little bit more on offense. The Packers were sort of limping around a little bit last week. The Packers should do better this week on offense. And I think this is a little bit of an overreaction on the Bears too. I don't think this is lined properly. The Packers are better than 4 points, better than the Bears, even at Chicago. And the Bears benefited from the insanity that is the Raiders right now. With John Gruden and everything that was happening there. Steve, I wish I would have put as much money as I possibly could on the Bears last week because I should have seen that coming. Yeah, I should have seen that coming a mile away. I mean, there's going to be players sitting in the locker room, black, white, I don't care what you are, and they have to be like, man, is this guy a complete piece of shit? I mean, that affects a team, right? So I regret not taking the Bears last week, but if anything, I have to take the Packers here, but I'm not really bullish on anything. It's just one of my least favorite games. What about you, Steve?
Well, it's funny because you said about like last game and now this game about a knee-jerk reaction. That's literally what I have written down in my notes here, that I really feel like this is a knee-jerk reaction on the Bears. We're seeing they dominated a shell-shock, clearly dysfunctional Raiders team due to their coaching staff. We all know what's happened in that situation. And you're looking at this, and when I cap this game, I'm like, wow, I can't believe it's this low. So I just really feel like you are getting pretty good bargain Rodgers and Packers right here. Are the Bears like a exciting pick to look at and like take? Oh, they're at home. Their defense is playing well. They can get after Rodgers. Yeah, absolutely. But don't forget, Rodgers is 20-5 lifetime record against the Bears. He dominates this team, so he's not going to be scared of a rookie quarterback playing in Chicago this weekend. So I really like Green Bay. They're 6-1 against the spread in their last 7 games played in October as well. Chicago's 3-7 against the spread in their last 10 games against a North Division opponent. So they don't really play well against their division rivals. And they're also Chicago's also 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 games played in October as well. So just we're going to play both sides of it here, that, these teams do play well in October. And I'm going to give that edge still to Rodgers. I think he's going to they had their close game last week. I think he comes out and wins this one pretty handily.
Yeah, I'm glad we're on the same side there. I thought you were going to say something sneaky for the Bears. I was like, oh, shit. Okay. Next game, Chiefs football team. Washington is plus 6.5 now at home. Came down from 7. I think it started at 7.5. Maybe 7 or 7.5. Let me see if I can find that one real quick. Because it started at 6.5, and it's been fluctuating a little bit. But anyway, total here is 56. Steve, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, for me, this is going to be depending on where you get this line at 6.5. I'm going to kind of lean towards KC 7 Washington. So lock it in early and get which side you want to be on. I really view Washington a lot like the Eagles. Okay, I mean, I'm looking at this team. They should have a strong defense in front. We haven't really seen it that much, but I still waiting to see this Washington team, a mobile quarterback that can make plays, show flashes. But at the end of the day, ultimately, if they're going to go toe-to-toe with the likes of Kansas City, again, coming off of a loss, this is setting up just like when Kansas City had to come to the East Coast and play Philadelphia. And I absolutely like Kansas City that week. I'm going to like Kansas City this week again, especially when they're coming off a loss like they just did. We know there's going to be a lot of points in this game. I texted Chris and told him immediately, you're going to have to start just nailing Kansas City overs. I think that's going to have to be a trend this whole year, just because their defense is just giving up so many points. And I feel like teams like Washington can put up points and also give up all the points as well. So I'm really looking for overs in this game at 55.5. It's a big number, but you want some quick scoring types of teams that are going to give up big plays. These are the teams that are going to do it as well. But at 6.5, I think you're getting really good value on Kansas City to do what we saw the Saints did last week. Although, Heineke made some crucial mistakes in the red zone that game could have gone other ways. It didn't. Jameis Winston was comfortable in Washington, and if Jameis Winston can be successful and throw 4 touchdowns on that team, you don't think Patrick Mahomes can. So I'm going to really look at the over here, and at 6.5, I'm liking Kansas City.
Yeah, same page as you here, Steve. Favorite plays on this are the over. I would look at KC's team over, look at Washington's team total over. I mean, the Chiefs are allowing 450 yards per game. There's nothing to like about the Chiefs' offense right now. You could say the same thing about Washington. They're just not adding up at all to what people thought they should be. Heineke has like a Brett Favre kind of way about him. He just kind of slings it. He's not afraid, lives in the moment. You like that for the over too, right? Could be some turnovers and short fields for KC. I wanted to go with Washington here with all the money on KC, all the public money on KC. And now, it's moving in the opposite direction. I mean, I don't know, but I can't. I mean, I would have to take KC here, right? Because there's just eventually, even though they're 2-3, I mean, so they're crazily, they're still the last place team in the AFC West. Even though that's true, there's still a swagger to this team. There's still a confidence to this team. And at the end of the day, way better coaching. I mean, something's going on in Washington right now that's throwing that entire team off. Who knows how this investigation into Dan Snyder is going to possibly affect Washington and their football team and their attitudes towards their ownership in front office. That could very well be a thing. The only side I could take here is the Chiefs this week. Could be a circle play for us, Steve, if we like it or not. If it sticks at 6.5, I guess we'll see. I don't like it as much at 7 like you. But love a lot of totals in this game. And if this game, by some chance, starts off slow, bang that live over on this game. It is, those lines on totals can quickly move down in these games. Like if it's just like 7-0 in the first quarter, that line can drop to like 50 or 49, and then you're getting a ton of value. So just always watch out for that. Okay, let's move to the next game. Vikings at Panthers. Panthers are +1 at home, and the total is at 46. This is a tough one, Steve. Two teams that are pretty darn good, but they're not great, I don't think. You called the Panthers spot last week. I mean, at first I was like, well, Steve was finally wrong about an Eagles game. And then the Eagles stepped up in a big way, man. They controlled the line of scrimmage in a lot of spots. Carolina now is starting to get, I wouldn't say exposed. I think they're still a good team, but they're playing harder teams and they're not exactly excelling in like every phase of the game. So, this could be a Panthers retribution game this week after blowing it last week. I don't know. I don't love Kirk Cousins in these spots. Kirk has been good, but now he's on the road. He's still playing a great defense. I still think this is a really good defense. So, if anything, I would have to lean towards the Panthers, and I'd have to lean towards the under. We're seeing a lot of Vikings games go under, but the Vikings were lucky to win last week against the Lions, man. So, this is a tough call for me. So I'm going to stay away from the side probably, but I kind of lean under.
Yeah, this is definitely a tough game as well. I mean, I really felt like Darnold showed who he was last week, in my opinion. Like, that game was teed up perfectly for them to win, and they just could not get over himself to like just put up more points on the board. He threw 3 picks last week, couldn't go down and hit a game-winning drive. I mean, I just think that's who Darnold is, and we really saw that. But for me, a lot of reverse line movement is on this game so far. I was looking earlier, when 37% of the bets were on the Vikings, it moved from -1.5 from Carolina to -1 Minnesota. That's a big jump there. So it went from +1.5 to -1, and only 37% of the bets at that time were only on the Vikings. Now it's 44-56, 44% on the Vikings. So that's a lot. That's some big movement for not having a lot of majority of the bets on them. But last week we saw some weird movement as well. They went from 7.5 to 10.5 in some spots, with majority still being on Detroit. So Vikings are just a very strange, weird team that are not living up to what what we're thinking they're going to do. We don't know, and it's too unknown right now. Is Kirk Cousins going to go out and throw for 350 yards, 3 touchdown passes, or is he going to be able to barely move the ball and settle for field goals like we saw against getting the 1 touchdown against the Browns and then, a ton of field goals against Detroit. Again, this is like kind of a scary game. I'm actually looking to probably fade it a little bit. On paper, I really like the Vikings. I think they're a much better team. However, I just haven't seen them show up yet as well. So I'm just going to kind of probably just maybe look and see what this line does. But right now, I don't really have a play on it.
Okay, talk about a tough game, Steve. Chargers at Ravens. Ravens 3-point favorites. Chargers getting juiced on the +3, and totals at 52.
Yeah, so I mean, this game is really interesting because I mean, anytime you look at that Chargers +3, it's like automatic. Like, yes, I'm going to take the Chargers +3 there, and that's what my gut instinct right away. And then when you start looking into the numbers, like right now, 90% of the bet percentage is on the Chargers, and that line has not moved at all. So it's like, what is going on this one? So it's kind of has me leaning towards Baltimore. This just feels like me that it's a vintage go against your instinct, kind of do what makes you feel uncomfortable, because I feel like Ravens -3 isn't the comfortable pick for me. And sometimes I think when you're making a pick that is uncomfortable, it tends to be sometimes right, even more right. When you feel really confident in a pick, like, oh, wow, that feels like I'm really going to win that one. Like, how often do you actually just lose and it just goes the other way? And you're like, well, duh, of course I'm wrong. So that's why I kind of like Baltimore here, just because I got to see this line move a lot more. We saw how, Lamar, he showed that that was impressive comeback from behind, and he was not doing it with his legs at all. They didn't eclipse their 100 yards rushing for the Ravens that they were trying to amass to set the record. They didn't even care about that. He got it done with his arm, and that was an impressive victory by the Ravens. And I've attested to it earlier in the year. Once they hit that 66-yard field goal, this is the type of team now that's going to rally and start building off of each other and be able to find wins and make things happen. And again, they did it again, and I don't think they're going to be scared of anyone. Likewise, Herbert, the Chargers, they're absolutely well-balanced, awesome stud team. I'm really excited to just genuinely watch this game. I think it's going to be an absolute electric show. But right now, I'm still going to lean the Ravens -3 just because it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I'm a little annoyed because I'm going to go to the Giants game. I think even if Daniel Jones doesn't play, I'm just going to go. I'm just going to go, Steve. But that means like if I'm watching Mike Lennon from 1 till 4, and then I miss this game at 4 o'clock, which is going to be a barn burner. I don't know if that's worth it, right? But gotta take Kate to one of these Giants games, regardless of what happens. But yeah, man. I mean, Lamar Jackson has just he broke a few records in that game. Just sensational game from him. And this is just it's tough because what do the great quarterbacks do? The great quarterbacks can turn it on, go right down the field when it matters most. Unlike Baker Mayfield last week. Sorry, not sorry. We called that one, didn't we, Steve? Because you have Justin Herbert against Baker. We said it could go down to the last drive. That's exactly what happened. And Herbert stepped up. But Ravens have now won 4 in a row. Only lost that first game against the Raiders. Chargers have now won 3 in a row. Easily two of the top teams in the AFC right now. Not counting the Bills. This could be the AFC Championship game if they stay on this course. Chargers 8-1 ATS in their last 9 games. So they're a covering machine right now. So for me, it's just what's the more likely thing? Is it could the public possibly be right at taking +3 here? Or am I going to choose that or side with that, or am I going to side with just sort of my logic in the whole thing, which is 2 quarterbacks who are going to be able to will their team and go down the field at the end. They're both really good at it. So if I'm getting points with one of them, and pure passer wise, I obviously do believe that Herbert is way better than Lamar. Then if I'm going to get 3 points from one of these quarterbacks, I'm going to have to go with the Chargers, even with the juice here. It is scary, Steve. I agree, and I probably wouldn't want to play this one in Circa because it would scare the shit out of me a little bit. But I'm going to have to go with the Chargers in this one just because you're giving me 3 points with Herbert, and it's just like the Cowboys right now. You're right. It's just a few of these teams. They're going to have to prove me wrong. I'm going to keep on betting on them until it proves me wrong, right? And with the Chargers right now, I think they're locked in. So I'm going to go with I think the Chargers have the better defense too, by the way.
Yeah, I mean the thing is too. I mean, if it comes down to a last drive, I mean, would you be shocked if this is just a push and that's why this line's going to stay at 3?
Exactly.
So, I mean,
exactly. And that's why I wouldn't want to take it for Circa either. I don't want that shit to happen twice in a row.
right.
The Chargers don't have Justin Tucker. That's another thing. So
That's a big one. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Ravens are great in close games, right? They just make it happen. So, but now seeing the Chargers this good in close games is kind of wild because for years they were one of the worst teams in close games. So okay. that just goes to show you kind of a culture change there.
Coaching.
All right, Bengals at Lions. Lions are +3.5 at home. I believe this game is at what is it? I think it's 47.5. Yeah, 47.5 is the total. Line opened up at 1 actually, so it's moved very much in favor of the Bengals. But I think we may see some lost value here on the Lions. Probably not a real popular pick for a lot of people, but this is actually, if you're listening to this, you're welcome, I guess. This is going to be a premium pick of mine, and I'm pretty bullish on it for a few reasons. The Bengals are getting a ton of hype right now. I really like the Bengals. The Bengals are obviously improved on defense. Joe Burrow, excuse my language, is the fucking man. I mean, he's tough, right? He's gritty. He needs to learn how to slide. But I like Joe Burrow a lot. But every single week we're seeing this from the Lions. I mean, it's mind blowing. They play well every week. I mean, they really do. Like between the 20-yard lines, they play so well, man. And then they find ways to blow the game. I mean, I think this is one of the best 0-5 teams I've ever seen. I mean, this is not a team that should be 0-5. And they play well every single week. And Vikings were lucky to win that game last week. And what I love also in this game is listening to Dan Campbell after that game. This big, burly, like he looks like the dude. He's just like a guy's guy, and he's like tearing up and getting emotional because he's so passionate about his team and like really just wants them to pull out a victory here. This team is not going to stop fighting for Dan Campbell. I think he's a player's coach, and the kind of player's coach that's not like like Rex Ryan or something. Like doesn't know what he's doing. Dan Campbell, I think he knows what he's doing. He's a player's coach. I think the team wants to win for him. And the Bengals are 10-3 ATS in their last 13 games following a straight-up loss, and that was a painful loss last week. So could the Bengals just turn around? Could Joe Burrow slice and dice the Lions? Absolutely, right? But that's why we bet. This is gambling. The Lions are one of my favorite picks. We're getting the hook, and this might be Vegas, Steve. Lure me right the hell in, but I gotta go. I gotta go with the Lions at plus 3.5 here.
No, I agree. Talk about a vintage trap game. I mean, the spread just on paper doesn't make sense. When I first handicapped this, I had this game at 7. I haven't had a spread that wrong since the Saints-Giants game when I had that game at 3, and it was actually 8, which I should have listened to myself and taken the Giants on, but I didn't, stupidly. So, I mean, so that right there is just telling me a lot. Like, okay, it doesn't make sense. And it's a sneaky game. Detroit's at home, and like you and I, we've watched Detroit. We've seen them. They're in these games. The scores might not represent it, but they're actually in these games. They are playing. I think Goff is a more capable quarterback than they want to give credit to. This team, I think, did lose a receiver this week, though, so they are very shallow in the receiver depth. So just to keep a eye on that. But I think they're here, and like you said, I like the narrative of how they get up and they play for Dan Campbell. And a lot of people are saying that, yeah, he comes off as just kind of like, like the rah kind of coach, but he's actually very sharp and he knows what he's doing. And I think Detroit is going to be on the right track here sooner than later, in the near future. And I like them in this spot. And I might even venture to say that this could even be an upset alert type of game for money line for the value, just because this line is so low. And it doesn't make sense, and there could be some value to be played on this as well.
Yeah, it feels like the books are just luring you to take the Bengals here, right? Line just keeps climbing and climbing, even though the bets are on them. So it's very interesting here. Okay, Rams at Giants. I reckon I'll take this one first, Steve, since it's my stinky little Giants. Well, I should be easy on them, I guess. Giants played really well in the first half until DJ and Saquon went down. It was a competitive game. But anyway, well, I'll get into that shit in a second. But Rams at the Giants, I'll be there. Giants now plus 9.5, totals at 47.5. This line was at 10.5, but some good news came out today about DJ. It looks like he's on track to play, which is good news for me because I don't feel like watching Mike Glennon play for the Giants. But so my thoughts on this game, Steve, man, I think the Giants got a shot, with Daniel Jones. I would have liked this at plus 10. The Giants are just not, it's hard to take last week's game against the Cowboys. This year, any defense that faces the Cowboys in the way they're playing, I think we kind of have to put an asterisk by it, right? Same with the Cardinals, probably same with the Bills. But the Rams don't intimidate me like some other offenses do. Matthew Stafford in a passing game is definitely good. It's definitely above average, but they still have some weaknesses. I mean, they were finally able to get the run game going last week a little bit, but the Giants historically are pretty solid against the run. They haven't played as well this year, but historically they're pretty good against it. And I'm not scared here that the Rams are going to pull away. I don't call it a fan feeling or whatever. But if this was at plus 10 or plus 10.5, I would really like the Giants under 10. And it begs us to ask the question: if this was like 7.5 and it moved to 6.5, like would I have hated the 7.5? Just because of the perception. I don't know. But since the line was set at 10, that's pretty close to my numbers. I mean, I think this game should be around 8 or 9. But with the recent injury to DJ and with some of the uncertainty of the Giants game to game and just how volatile they can be, I can't have a play here, Steve, but I do kind of like the under. I think the Giants could go back a little bit, sacrifice Daniel Jones a little less after he just got that concussion, make their plays a little more conservative. But I think the Giants could hold the Rams a little bit in this game. So I'm leaning towards the under, but no bullish play on this one, man. And maybe that's smart for me since I'm going to this game. And when the Giants inevitably lose and I lose my bets in this game, I'll be going nuts. So what do you think about it?
Well, I do think you at least get to go to the FanDuel Sportsbook, so that'll be fun over there in Meadowlands. You gotta go check that out.
That's true.
That'll be a good time. You can put in some crazy bets there. Yeah, for me, I just gotta I got to just go with what I think is just, the Giants are just too banged up offensively versus a very high powered Rams offense and defense team. The narrative for me is that these Rams, they know they have to keep pace within their division with their record. That, looking at Arizona, they're 5-0 and they've already lost to a game to them, so they're almost 2 games back in that way. So like they have to be prepared. They're not going to be, there's no look ahead games for the Rams at this point. They have to win every game. Now we just it's not college football. You don't have to win by style points. You just have to win. So I still like them, I think, especially now at 9.5, even though, yes, Daniel Jones is back. I just don't think offensively they have the weapons to compete with the Rams back and forth. I mean, I have seen the Giants in the past go out to LA and when they were supposed to get absolutely blown out and stick with the Rams and almost beat them. So, but I think that was with Goff and a different offense. So now I think Stafford is really bringing new life to this Rams team. They're very dangerous. And like I said, just toe to toe, I don't think the Giants have the firepower to keep up. So I'm going to lean and take the Rams here, probably -9.5.
Yeah, probably one of the better survivor picks this week too, if you can get that.
Yeah.
Cardinals at Browns. Browns 3-point favorites against the 5-0 Cardinals at home. Totals at 49.5.
So I want to start out by saying, would you ever have thought that a 5-0 team would be a dog against the Cleveland Browns? Like has that ever happened before? I highly doubt it. It's insane. I mean, the Browns are doing things and they're doing it on both sides of the ball. I mean, putting up, yes, they lost to the Chargers, but they still, what they put up 40 points, 42 points last week. They are running the ball and they're running it dominantly. And, Baker's managing it well and he can make throws when he needs to. But like you said, game winning drives yet to be seen. However, interesting stat I saw come out that Kyler Murray, when he is held to 15 yards or less rushing, he is 1-7-1 in that 8-game sample. Last week he had 1 yard rushing, and they only scored 17 points against a banged up San Francisco team. So, who has a really good defense that could possibly contain Kyler Murray? The Cleveland Browns. They're absolutely dominant. So if they can keep him in the pocket and not let him move around on his feet, that's where Kyler Murray really suffers. And I think this is the matchup that can give Kyler Murray a lot of problems. And because of that, I think I am actually leaning taking the Browns with the 3 points there. And the narrative is if you hold Kyler Murray to minimal rushing yards and the key number is below 15, then you're going to have a good shot to win.
Yeah, we see juice on that number too right now, which is interesting. So this is going to sound very square, Steve, but this is an auto bet on the Cardinals for me. I mean, I'm gonna bet on the money line too. Forget even the +3. I love a lot of stuff that you said there. I think the Cleveland defense could absolutely give Kyler Murray problems. My thing is that this isn't the same Cardinals team in a big way. Defense. I mean, the Cardinals are only allowing 19 points per game. Now, in today's NFL, especially with the way that the Cardinals offense can operate, if they can keep that pace going all year, that's a pretty scary team. Now, that's a big if, obviously. And the Browns are built very similarly. But what's the problem, as always, right? Like Baker, between the lines, very good quarter. He played really well last week. It wasn't his problem last week. The issue was when it comes down to it, you can't trust him. He checks down. He makes conservative decisions. That's what separates the great quarterbacks from the ones that aren't great. Is when when they have the ball in the final 2 minutes, like when Brady has the ball. When Peyton had the ball. I mean, they're going right down the field, no doubt about it, right? Unless some kind of freak play happens. Baker is so far from that at this point, and it's going to start to become a talking point for the Browns. Like, do they pay Baker after this year? Because they are one great quarterback away from becoming a really sensational team. All that to say, Steve, the Cardinals have given me no reason to not trust them in this game at +3. I don't see a lot of flaws in their game. Kyler's size is certainly an issue if he gets hit, but the guy is tough to hit. If anyone can Yeah, Myles Garrett, absolute monster off the edge. And you got to believe that Cleveland's going to be sending a lot of packages to confuse Kyler. But now, I mean, I just have to. I don't care how square it is. I have to pick the Cardinals in this one if you're giving me plus money on them, and I'll just eat the money if I lose. That's just all there is. That's all there is to it.
No, I like it. Undefeated team. Why not?
Yeah. Raiders at Broncos. Broncos minus 3.5 at home at Mile High. Totals at 44. And I'm really interested to what you think about this one, Steve, because I'm not going to think about any statistics in this game. I'm not going to think about any angles other than one, and that is that the Raiders just lost their coach. There's a ton of pressure on them. Well, actually, I don't know if there is a ton of pressure on them anymore. That's the wrong word I'm using. There's a ton of spotlight on them, but now that John Gruden is gone, this could go one or two ways, and I think it's going to be a positive. We see a lot of teams when a coach goes away, when a coach gets fired, those next games, there's like a big sigh of relief in the organization because that guy needed to go. Now, I don't know if that's how the perception was of John Gruden before all that shit happened. I don't know if players already didn't like him, but this had to affect the Raiders team in some way at the course of some of these seasons, a talented Raiders team. And the Raiders have not played like themselves. Right now, all of a sudden, after 3-0 start, they're like, oh, the same old Raiders. Listen, Denver at home is always scary, but Denver at home does not deserve 3.5 points. At least I don't think. You're giving me the hook with the Raiders. Again, maybe I'm just a square little bitch here, Steve. Not just like taking the hooks. I don't know, but I have to go with the Raiders to answer after all that. I mean, every player on the Raiders that got pissed off about everything that happened is going to take it out in this game, and I like that for the Raiders.
Yeah, I mean, we're all aware of the situation in Vegas, and now my biggest question is how does the team respond? And you have to like the narrative that they're going to rally, come back. They still have all their pieces. They still have all their players. They still have a quarterback that was leading the league in passing yards in the first 3 weeks, right? So you have to like that they're going to come and rally around their team and each other and play very well. And you're going to tell me you're going to get the hook on top of that? Like, I love that at 3.5. When we look at the Raiders, they're actually 6-3 against divisional opponents in the last 9 games, and the under with division opponents for Denver has hit 14 out of 18 games. So we have a low total, and we're still getting a hook with the Raiders. So I'm looking at the under and the Raiders on this to cover as well. I really think, and I would not be surprised if the Raiders even, this is looking like some money line value here too. I mean, would you not be surprised if after everything that happened and the Raiders have I'm blanking on the name, an openly gay player. Wouldn't you see that being like just a great narrative for him to standing there proud on the team after they won for the week? Like I would not be shocked if I saw that happen. So this is what I'm looking at, and I really like the Raiders to bounce back after everything they've been through the last week.
I'm so glad you're on the same side as that one with me, Steve, because that I mean it's there's two different narratives every time. I mean, either a team's going to collapse after that happens, or a team's going to respond. I have to believe they're going to respond, right? I mean, when Schefter came out and said all the different categories, Gruden literally offended every different category.
Yeah,
so I mean, it's not funny, obviously, but like a lot of people on that team are going to be pissed off.
Yeah, they're affected.
Yeah. Absolutely, they're affected by it, and it's has to fuel them if anything. Okay, Cowboys at Patriots. Cowboys minus 3.5 on the road at Gillette Stadium. Totals at 51, Steve.
I mean, talk about baiting you to take a team here, right? I mean, 3.5, and it's the Dallas Cowboys who are 5-0 against the spread and have been absolutely dominating teams, and now they're going to have to just play a rookie quarterback who almost lost to Davis Mills and the Houston Texans. Like, what is going on here? And this is like this reminds me of I forget, was it week 3 or week 4, one of them, where I put a tweet out saying like I'm going to just make a lot of uncomfortable plays that don't make sense, and because of that I'm looking at New England on this one because it doesn't make any sense, and I have about 3 of these games that I feel are that way, and so if I can go 2-1 on them, I'm happy because some of them are going to hit. there's just undoubtedly some of them are going to hit because so many people are going to be on the other side of it. And I said, you got to get on the right side of these. And 82% of the money right now is on the Cowboys, and it's moving down even more. So I just don't understand this game. I mean, it's moving the opposite way. It's moving the opposite way towards it was at 4, right? Yeah, now it's at 3.5. So it just doesn't make sense to me that it's not giving a
Yeah,
bigger.
it was at 4.5.
Yeah, it was at 4.5. Now it's at 3.5. So it's giving a less spread. So I'm gonna just look at the Pats here. I'm leaning the Pats. Dallas also just historically is 3-7 against the spread in their October games. For what that's worth, New England's 1-4 in the last 5 games in October. So, and this is also something that I would not be afraid to just not even touch as well.
Yeah, I mean, you said it all already, Steve. I mean, 5-0 ATS, the Cowboys. One stat that I look at that really stands out to me that's makes me still want to side with the boys, Steve, is Dak Prescott, 19th in the NFL in pass attempts. You know, Dak during his rookie year, I think he was like in the 23rd in the league in pass attempts. Dak Prescott plays brilliantly when he doesn't have to handle the entire load on his back. And this year, Zeke is playing really well. I mean, that rushing offense is sensational. And the Patriots, as good as they could be pretty good on defense, not that great against the run. I mean, they're still allowing 111 yards per game. That just scares me a little bit. So, you got me thinking other ways. This reverse line movement is messing with my head. The Cowboys at 5-0 ATS and what they've shown on offense, how in the hell is Mac Jones going to keep up with that? I don't know, but they did it against the Bucs.
And that's the thing. Yep.
Yeah, they did it against the Bucs. So for now, we'll just leave it at that, I guess. I mean, I gave away premium customers at the beginning of the week. I gave away the Cowboys, and I'm really starting to rethink that. So we'll see where I land on that one. I might just stay off of Tuesday. All right, Seahawks and Steelers. This is a Sunday night game. Steelers minus 4.5 at home. Totals at 42.5. As we all know, Russell Wilson could be out for the season. Geno Smith coming in. Boy, he looked electric when he came in, though. I mean, he played really well. But I'm not sure if I can trust that, Steve. I mean, this game it's just a little gross for me. Like, Steelers at home. Now they finally got a win, but they still don't look dynamic on offense at all. I mean, it was a great spot, but they let Denver come back a little bit. If anything, I like the under on this one. I mean, the Seahawks offense has to be more limited against the Steelers defense. The Steelers offense is always going to be limited, but then last week, I've been bullish on these Steelers unders, these Broncos unders, and then last week I think they got 46 up on the board total. So it scared me away from that one a little bit too. There's nothing I really love about this game, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, look, I just think Pittsburgh Steelers without the Ravens winning on Monday night, almost every other AFC North team would have lost, and it was looking like the Ravens were going to lose, and the Steelers won. So it's almost like they almost had a 2-game swing there that week. But fortunately for the Ravens, they did come back and win. But Steelers are kind of right back in this division now, a little bit. If they can get to 3-3, I think it could, especially if the Ravens can maybe fall to the Chargers. So. They're not giving up on the season at all. They did lose Juju last week, which, can definitely affect them, but I don't think it will in this game. They're Sunday Night Football at home. There's a big difference between being a backup quarterback and just coming into a game where you don't really have time to think and gather your thoughts and you kind of just play versus preparing and now having to play. And I think you're going to see a big difference in Geno. And I think that Steelers defense absolutely gets after him. And we're going to see a reason why Geno Smith hasn't been starting in this league for a long time. He doesn't scare me at all. I always thought he was a terrible quarterback. I went to West Virginia University. I thought he stunk at West Virginia, and he's only proven me to be right so far. And I like the matchup here for Pittsburgh. I really like the fact that it seems like they kind of got their swagger back a little bit. Yeah, they almost let the Broncos back in the game, but they didn't because their defense bends don't break. That's what they've always done. They always find a way to win, and it feels like Steelers football was maybe starting to take a turn there. Ben looked a little more polished, and it looked like he was as injured as I thought he was going to be looking at this point when the the news was coming out about him being slightly hurt and questionable for that game. So I really do like the Pittsburgh here, especially Sunday night. The crowd's going to be amped. It's going to be rowdy. That defense is definitely going to be giving everything they can to Geno.
Yeah, you had me flipping on this one a little bit, maybe wanted to take a play on it. Now, the Steelers finally got their run game going last week, too, Steve, like you've been
Yep.
saying. You know, that,
Finally.
I mean, yeah, we saw a difference in their entire team once that happened, right? And maybe that's offensive line coming together. Maybe that's play selection. I mean, a combination of both. And Najee Harris is special talent. You know, they need to put the ball in his hands. So that I'm glad that you have a side in that, and you kind of talked me into it. I might have a play on it now. You know, also we're gonna have to rest with that one. You have to sleep on that one, Steve. But
Yeah,
I can
definitely.
see that. I love the intel on Geno Smith too, right? Because it kind of scares you a little bit after last week. It's like, damn, is Geno at, is he at like a new level in his QB2 career? But I don't know.
No, he sucks.
Yeah, he sucks. All right, Bills at the Titans. This one's really sneaky for me. Titans +6 with the juice at home. Totals at 53.5. Eager to hear what you have to say about this one, Steve, because this is a real interesting game.
Well, I mean, so Buffalo's only proven they've been really good this year, and they've been really good on the road. I mean, I was very bullish on the Chiefs last week at -2.5. I thought it was a good spot for them to kind of climb back into their division. They needed an absolute win, and they obviously got just completely manhandled by this Bills team. They look very impressive. However, the Titans did exactly what they're supposed to do after having that hard loss against the Jets. They went down to Jacksonville and completely destroyed them, dismantled them, looked like the Titans team that we've been expecting to see this year. And they're only going to get better this week coming up with Julio. And we're going to do it in a primetime Monday Night Football game where I think there's going to be an electric atmosphere. And I just don't see this game being any more than a blowout like we did in Sunday Night Football. I think it's going to be a very close back and forth chess match. I think Tennessee is actually, like, their defense is going to step up and play a little better than they have been. And I just wouldn't be shocked if Tennessee is in this game to at least cover this. And I'm leaning a little bit towards Tennessee at home right now.
Total agreement for me on that one, Steve. There's something so sneaky about this. I don't know if it's like historical knowledge in the back of my head. If anybody's ever read the book Blink, like that whole book teaches you that your gut instincts are actually based off of years and years of memory and like gathering information. This is one of those games, Steve, where I just have a gut instinct that the Titans are going to be real feisty. And for a lot of the reasons you just said, I mean, King Henry, I mean, good Lord, this Derrick Henry is built different, and he's bordering already on like Hall of Fame territory just because just multiple monster years. Like if he has a few more of these, he's a shoo-in. I mean, 5 games in, 640 yards on the ground, Steve, 7 touchdowns. I mean, easily averaging over 100 yards a game already, easily averaging over 1 touchdown per game. Now you got Julio Jones coming back. A lot of steam behind Buffalo right now. This game started. It started at the Bills as a 2-point favorite, I believe, at 2.5, and it's up to 6. And of course, 80% of the bets on the Bills, so that makes sense that the line is moving. But now I think we're getting a lot of value on Tennessee. I mean, home team, they feel good about themselves. They have some steam now too. Julio coming back, like you said. The Titans defense, I've said, is not good, and it's not, but they can make plays. One or two plays by that defense changes the game, and they can control the game with Derrick Henry. I don't know why the Titans offensive line, like according to PFF and all these other things, it's consistently not rated as highly as other offensive lines. But if you look at Derrick Henry, man, he gets to the next level, and that's because of him too. But that offensive line creates holes. I mean, they are moving people out of the way. And the Bills have looked good on defense, but like let's not completely sell out and act like the Bills are just going to completely stifle Derrick Henry. I like the Titans in this game a lot, Steve. It feels like, it sounds like, smells like, could be a circle play. We'll see. But I mean, +6, that's a lot of value on Tennessee. All right, well, that covers the full round out here at Game, Steve. What are your big bulls bets of the week and your teaser of the week?
So big bold bet. I'm going to take Jacksonville outright money line. I like them in London. I bet on them in London before when they've had terrible teams and they've produced for me. So I just like the spot there. And also, it's always great to bet on those morning London games that are terrible teams because it makes it even that much more exciting for you. So definitely going to take the Jacksonville for the money line there. And for my teasers, I'm going to tease Kansas City down to win. I really like them there. I'm going to tease the Colts down as well from their 10. And then I'm just going to keep it simple and tease the Giants down as well. Not the Giants, the Rams down.
Yeah, so we have the same teaser. I want to tease down the Chiefs and the Rams. I guess I would also tease up Jacksonville too, because I think they're going to be at least pretty feisty in that game.
Yeah.
My big balls bet, Steve, we're saying the same shit, but I guess I'll add another element to it. I'm going to parlay the Jags and Cardinals. Why not? Why not give me plus money in two different ways here, and just I get a 5-0 team, and I think the Jags could straight up win, just like you. So those are my two plays. Steve and I gave away a lot of premium plays on this podcast, like we always do. So thank you so much for listening. That's always a gift from us. Obviously those aren't readily given out for free. But we just want to thank you guys again. We are right at that. Yeah, we're right at the 1 hour mark, Steve. We did it.
You did perfect.
14 games, 28 teams. Please follow everything you see on the bottom of the screen. That's at the Odds Breakers, at SportsWagerU, at BetUSTV. Please follow Steve and I at Snorm, at Farley Bets on Twitter. And until next week, everybody, keep your eye on Steve Norman. This mother is over 30 units. You got to keep it rolling, Steve.
Yes, sir.
Money, baby.
Let's go. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you.
Till next week.